Hey, this is Stefan.
And this is Ada.
And we're having lunch. But anyway, I just wanted to do a little bit of a different start to our video in the sense that we actually did this video 3 times. And it was about, in part, because of I'm done with my 9-to-5 job now. And it kind of was really boring. It was like me talking about myself and Ada and all that sort of stuff. But instead, after the 3rd try, we just said, hey, let's do some questions. And so we had AI come up with 20 questions about retirement in Mexico, and we're using that as a baseline. And I think the key thing for you is, how would you answer these questions? We'd love to hear what your answer is for these questions, and put them in YouTube if you feel okay with that, the YouTube discussion or our Facebook group. We'd love to hear that, and we're going to give you our answers too. So hopefully this will be a little more snappy, a little bit more useful for anybody that's looking to retire in Mexico. So that's it. Beautiful sunny day outside. So we're going to make this one a little snappy. All right.
All right. I'll ask this first one here. Why are you considering retiring in Mexico, and what are you hoping to gain or leave behind?
So retiring in Mexico, I think for us. So just to clarify, we go back and forth still. We've got an inexpensive place in the U.S. Our primary is going to be Mexico. We'll most likely have full-time. Ada's already a citizen. I will most likely get permanent residency. And so for me, what it is, it's about the language, the culture, the people, the experiences. Mexico is the closest you can get to the United States and feel as far away as possible. And I want to learn Spanish, like full on. And so that'll take us some time. How about you?
Well, I don't know about retiring in Mexico because I don't think that's never going to happen.
She's going to work forever.
So
and I'm going to have to help her, so I'm never going to retire,
like,
actually.
Why am I considering working in 2 countries? And what am I hoping to gain or leave behind? I don't know. I think for me, it's just a matter of, part of why I want to be here is to get closer to my background, get closer to my roots, get closer to my family, learn Spanish.
Because your mom is from Jalisco.
My mom is from Jalisco, kind of taking it full circle, and just being able to be someplace. I think your point about it feeling like you're as far away from the U.S., but you're really close, that's it, because the vibe when you're here is so not the same vibe that when you are back in the States. Is completely different, and it's one that I love and one that I want to continue with.
Okay, good. That's 1 out of 20.
Okay.
I have to make them snappy.
Quickly, because
snappy.
I'm
Okay.
hungry.
What does a meaningful retirement look like for me? Meaningful for me are a couple things. One is spending time with family and friends as much as possible and having that togetherness. And then 2, I've worked a lot in my lives, and that's to help out my family. I think in retirement, because I don't feel like I'm ever going to be retired, I want to have this new giving back period in my life. And I think that goes with mentoring people, but also giving back in other ways as well. So that's really what I see in the next stage of my life.
I'm not retiring.
You're never retiring, so you're always giving back. So
yeah, that's built into my job description.
Exactly. And I'm not, I still want to work a little bit. So retirement, I don't like the word retirement. That's what it boils down to. Okay, 3.
Are you drawn to Mexico for the culture, climate, cost, or something deeper?
All of the above, but I think also something deeper. Mm-hmm. It's just being part of a global community, and being in Mexico does give you that.
Yeah, it's a completely different living experience than you will ever have. It has different challenges that I think are actually going a little rogue here, but from the brain standpoint, it's stimulating. It's that you've got to pay attention. You have the opportunity to learn in a way that you just can't get comfortable living down here. It's comfortable, but you can't just be comfortable, because hopefully you are being stimulated, intellectually, artistically, physically, and I think that's actually really good.
Yeah, and to that point, I just want to add just a little bit. It's almost like a good jump-off point to do something new, and I think that it energizes your brain, and it takes you to a whole new level, and hopefully my brain will be energized for many years to come. All right, next.
Okay, I'll read it. All right, how do you define enough financially, emotionally, and socially?
Ooh, that's a good one. So there's never enough emotionally and socially, right? I love, Yes, if I had friends come by every day for the entire year, I'd get a little drained, but we're not to that satiation point yet. And the more we can meet with you guys, the more we meet with our friends and family, especially in Mexico, but even around the world, anywhere, I love it. That's what I drive off of. Financially, it's interesting because I think financially we all look at what's the number we need in order to retire or whatever, or in order to live in Mexico. There's a number that you need in order to get a residency in Mexico. We're not going to go into that in this, but I think it's about, what is your lifestyle? What, do you need to have all these fancy things? And if not, then you can actually get by on much less. And I think right now we're trying to figure out what that equilibrium is. I can't even say it anymore. Equilibrium is. Yeah, and so financially, just take a look at what you spend, not much what you need to save. I think that's the important thing.
I think trying to do too much too soon is when I draw the line.
Too much too soon? Yes, true. Flow.
I'm saying
You're
that,
a flow person.
I'm saying that because you want to dive head first. I need space. True.
And by the way, one other note on financials, and I think the one thing in here is hidden the stuffication. The more, because you want to have enough money to have more stuff, like you want to get a boat. I sold my old boat, right? The more stuff you have, the more things you need to then work on to maintain. And so keep that in mind. The more simple you live your life, the less money you need, and the more freeing your mind will be.
Okay.
All right, what's up?
All right, I'll do the next one. Okay. How important is community, and are you open to building one in a different country?
Yeah.
Building a, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what we're doing here, right? Absolutely.
That's kind of a no-brainer.
And by the way, what we had found in every places we live in the United States, building a community here in Puerto Vallarta. Now, granted, there's a lot of people that are coming, from the U.S., but building a community here is super easy. Mm-hmm. I have to admit, sometimes I kind of think Puerto Vallarta is a place where it's like 55 or better community without the guardrails. Obviously, there's all ages and everything, but building a community here is super easy, and that's part of why we like it.
Yeah, I mean, we lived in our same house in California for 20 years and didn't know some of our neighbors.
Yes.
So I could throw a rock at all of their houses. Whereas here, in the city, we run into people all the time. It's far more, it feels far more like a community. It's just much closer, even though we may not necessarily live on the same street or the same block. It's that you're certainly going to you're going to find your people here. So.
Yeah. And, you know what? Another thing is I saw this on a TikTok. By the way, check out our TikTok channel, Living Simply Mex. But anyway, I was scrolling on there, and they're looking at a community. It's like there's no one outside in the yards. Everybody's in their houses and they're in their backyards. Here, especially in Mexico, it's very community driven. Everybody is out in the streets. Everybody is saying hello to everybody. Everything is happening. And so by nature, you're part of a community, and we really enjoy it.
Yeah, you're going somewhere.
Yep.
You're going to meet people. And so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next?
All right.
6, financial readiness. Oh boy, here we go.
Can you sustain your desired lifestyle in Mexico on your retirement income or savings?
That is a good question for everybody to ask themselves. Our answer is we're going to say the answer is yes. Yes, we made it to that point. But that number is different for everybody. You don't necessarily need to have a lot to live here, but you're going to live more in a basic fashion, and the sunset's the same for everybody. Mm-hmm. Right?
Sunset, the beach.
Yep.
It's
the tacos.
The street art.
It's all good.
People.
The guacamole and the avocados, really good and really fresh and really inexpensive. So yeah, I know we're going to blow up that pretty quickly, but again, that's a question you need to ask yourself: is how much do you need to really to spend here, and keep in mind that you don't need much if you don't want much.
Okay. Now, how about? Do you understand the tax implications of retiring abroad and U.S. and Mexican rules? Not yet.
Yeah, I think the one point of note there is we're getting there, right? We've set ourselves up, Ada,
I pay taxes
you pay
here.
taxes, you're a citizen. I really don't work down here. I travel through, yes, and take meetings on a phone call, yes, but that's pretty normal for everybody. I think the key thing is a lot of people think they're going to buy a condo and rent it out here and make money when they're in the off season or when they're not using it. I think it's more difficult than that because there's a lot of taxes that if you rent out your spot here, if you're doing it the right way, you will have to pay a lot of taxes in that. So it's something to consider if you're looking to rent property here. Think of renting property here as covering your expenses. It's probably coming, if you have a condo, covering your homeowner's fees. That's probably what you're going to get back. Which one are we at now? Oh,
Will you rent or buy property? Have you factored in maintenance?
we got ahead of the game.
Well, we've already, okay. All right, will you rent or buy property, and have you factored in maintenance, insurance, and legal costs?
Yes.
Okay, that's done.
Yeah.
We've talked about that in other videos.
I do want to point out though that renting is perfectly great down here. There's a lot of options. I think if you're at full year, that's good because of the summer months are the least expensive, so people like to lock in that. Houses in Jalisco specifically, the property tax is quite low, so there's low carrying cost, and so yeah, we've covered all that. Definitely, I think the key thing there, and we'll probably step on another question, we're getting ahead of ourselves, is that exchange rates do fluctuate, and I think that's going to be more in the future. So make sure you take into consideration those costs, not just what it is at the moment you're looking to move down here.
Well, and the other thing from a renter standpoint, like there's a lot of places for rent right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you've got to, I think, but it's also it is a buyer's market right now. There's a lot of inventory that's out here. At this point in time, where the video is being made, there's just a lot of inventory. That said, it is a whole lot more expensive here than when we bought. So it's one of those things that, and when we looked at property way back 20 years ago, when we were first starting to think about this, plan in our heads for long term, prices were expensive then, almost the same as when we actually bought in 2018. It actually had stayed pretty
2005 to 2018 was about the same, and then kind of like a hockey stick type of thing.
So it's kind of hard. It's just, I think, just know if it's a place that you can't afford, if it's kind of like if you're going to buy a house anywhere, it's that if that's going to be where you're going to end up, then you may need to push a little bit, but keep in mind that you're not going to necessarily, you got to pay cash.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think renting is really a fantastic way to just really get a sense of the market, the areas that you like, and also you never know, you might be walking along the street one day filming a video and see a house for sale.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing I would say, the kind of litmus test for me is, if you know you're going to be there a long time, and we felt in our soul that we were going to be here for a long time, that's one thing. And that you wanted to guard against, rising costs, like for rent or property value and stuff like that, then that's when I think is a really good litmus test to think about buying. And that's what our case was. Mm-hmm. All right, next.
All right. Have you set aside funds for emergencies or unexpected travel back to the U.S.? Well, that's part of why we actually chose Houston as our place. Is more. It's not so much on the funds. I'm going to kind of back up for a second. The ease of getting there, because it's got 2 international airports and there's multiple one-way flights to get there if we had to go back for whatever emergency there might be. So I think by design, we've actually, kind of planned for that, just in where we've chosen. Yep,
and for me especially, I have one thing in my mind because there's cancer in our family, is that MD Anderson is in Houston, and Mexico healthcare is awesome. It's really wonderful, and with insurance or even cash pay in some cases, but. For me, it's kind of like I have that feeling where we have catastrophic insurance. We can go up there and use some great medical care. That's the best because it's your life, right? And I want to take that very seriously.
Will you need part-time income or side projects, and is that realistic here? Well, you don't need them, but you will have them.
Yeah. I think we're in a
Thanks to me.
Yeah, well, I think we're in a good situation. Ada's still working. We've hit the kind of the financial market where we need to be. We're working for stimulation and joy and giving back. Those are the things. I think the key thing for anybody who's looking for side projects, it's going to be very hard for you to move down here and work. I think a lot of people, even people that have moved down here from Canada and the U.S., like, oh, you're taken away from folks in Mexico and their jobs. And so you have to be very, very careful about that. I do think, though, if you want to, there's actually some really great ways to make money, because if you have an online business, and you can do that in the United States, or you can do it here in Mexico. Let's say you're a psychologist and you do like online psychology or whatever the case is, right? And if you can do that here in Mexico and do that remote, I think that's a tremendous way of being able to having your cake and eating it too, and doing really well at it. But I wouldn't expect to come down here and work. But have that in mind, and you have to have a really more entrepreneurial mindset for that. But that'll be my suggestion, just top of my head. One other thing on that is when you do have online businesses, there is some tax incentives for that because of the cross-border treaties as it stands now. So something to look into if you're looking to do something like that. Do I feel confident navigating healthcare in Mexico?
Do you?
I do. The big difference is bring your credit card, bring your cash when you go to a visit. So even though you have insurance up north that may cover you down here in Mexico, they want cash up front. That is startling for some people when you come down here for the first time. The other startling thing is it's a lot less expensive and it's a lot more immediate. So you don't have to wait a long time for healthcare. But just be prepared for that event. And some people insure just by themselves, self-insure. But depending on your situation, you may want to have local insurance, you may want to have traveling insurance, or you may want to have insurance in states that covers you globally. And so just be prepared. I think I'm prepared for that.
So I'm going to chime in a second.
Uh-oh.
And that is, you're in a foreign country. You do have to, there are different, guardrails is the right word, but there are different levels of safeguards that we do have in the United States
true.
that we don't have here. Okay, and you have sometimes language barriers, or maybe you can speak to somebody who speaks English, but maybe they don't pick up every bit that all the nuances. And so you do have to pay attention. I mean, when you had to have your visit, a couple of years ago, and it was amazing, the whole process of, in like a day, we got you scheduled with a neurologist, had the session. He recommended the MRI. You had it that afternoon. The next day, we were back there.
And what does it cost? Like $300?
And that was less than a copay would have been for any.
$300 and some bucks or something.
It was
US?
It was basically $250.
$250 US. Yeah.
Okay.
But
the big but is that and so luckily there was nothing that came up, so that was all good. It ruled out all the major stuff. He gave you some medication, and while we actually did specify that you were allergic to a certain medication, when we were given the prescription for the different ones to go down and get, I did a little research first to make sure, like, what is this? Because the Mexican brand, I'm like, what is that? Mm-hmm. And as it turned out, one of those would have been one you were allergic to.
Right.
So I don't blame the physician for it, but I think it's one of those like nuances of being in a foreign country. You just have to be a bit more careful, mm-hmm. and don't just assume that everything someone's going to tell you is correct. And you shouldn't do that in the U.S. either. You should still also, get your second opinions, or you've got, Google, ChatGPT, look a little bit more into that. My healthcare background, mm-hmm. sort of made me a little bit more aware there. So that's where I kind of went there a little bit sooner.
I think the key thing is bring your records with you.
Yeah, bring your records, and because the other thing is that they didn't even really ask for your I mean, your name.
No,
I
no.
mean,
Let's get into the machine. Let's go.
Basically, it was just so that they could put you in the appointment book. So there was really no record. No, there's no long-standing record of that particular visit. And so that's one of those things where, once again, from a continuity of care standpoint, I'm sure they have their records there, but it's a much different system than it is in the U.S. So just keep that in mind.
It is a healthcare person, so all good.
Question.
That's good. We got to make them snappy. Let's see what's
healthcare and safety.
Exactly. Okay.
Well, you need international insurance, local private care, or rely on public services.
Yeah. We have international insurance. If we're down here more often, we may get local insurance. Rely on public services.
We're not going to rely on public services.
No. So I think that's a short answer.
Yeah.
Do I have any ongoing health conditions that might affect access or cost of care? I think the difference is if you're from U.S. or Canada, you can get some insurance that it doesn't matter if you have pre-existing conditions. I don't believe it's the same here in Mexico, right? So there could be some things of that. So what that may mean is if you're looking to get into insurance here and you're healthy, it may be worth getting that insurance earlier before some pre-existing condition happens.
We did hear that from somebody.
Yeah.
But that's hearsay.
Okay. Next, health conditions. Is the location I'm considering safe, and does it feel secure longer term?
Yes.
That's a good question. Puerto Vallarta is extremely safe. It's a city like any others. You just got to be careful, like any other city. But we feel safer here, much safer here than in Houston, and safer than the San Francisco Bay Area.
Well, and
safety
is you got to incorporate safety from the weather,
Mm-hmm.
And the environmental hazards, the streets. We're walking in the streets. We have a high likelihood of getting hit by a car if we're not paying attention.
That's the biggest risk here. That is by far the biggest risk.
Or falling. That's a huge, and falls are no joke. Okay, this is my physical therapy brain coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Falls are no joke. That is a leading cause of mortality later on. So, so those are the things that you're going to want to keep in mind as you're considering where you live. If you're somebody that's already, a little bit off balance, maybe you're weak, you're already a little deconditioned. Coming and living in downtown where the streets are cobblestone and the sidewalks are maybe not, they're not always even. They may end suddenly. They're not necessarily, handicap friendly. You might be better off moving someplace that is a little bit further north, that is a little more modern. So,
like in Puerto Vallarta, right?
Right. Well, when I say north, closer to Nuevo Vallarta, kind of in that direction. Stuff is flatter, stuff is newer. The sidewalks are more, they're wider, and it's the infrastructure is a little bit better there for that kind of aspect.
The one thing I would say though is thinking Mexico as a whole. Definitely think of the cities that you're interested in, and what I would do is I would go there and spend time there. Because, I think a lot of people think, oh, Mexico is dangerous. Or, what? Some parts of Mexico are dangerous, right? Some cities in Mexico are dangerous. Some cities in Mexico, many cities in Mexico, a majority are extremely safe. And so you need to have an understanding of that and do your own investigation. Don't kind of do a big broad brush, on that front. And then the other thing I would say is, if you're looking to rent or buy someplace, spend time in that community, in that block. Because as you mentioned earlier, people out on the streets, they'll get to know you. You will be part of that community. And so that sense of safety also comes from that as well. All right, next, what do we got? Lifestyle fit. Have I visited enough to know the area in different seasons, not just as a tourist?
Yes.
Yes. And I would say visit, before you move, visit year round. Watch a lot of YouTube videos. Actually, that's what we did. We because we couldn't be down here all the time, we watched a lot of YouTube videos. But do check that out by foot. and experience what life is like on a daily basis. Don't think to yourself you're going to be on the beach drinking a margarita every day, because that's not good for your health.
All right. Do you enjoy the pace of life, food, language, and cultural rhythms of the area?
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready to adapt or learn Spanish to better connect with the community? Yes.
Absolutely.
Will you feel stimulated, connected, and purposeful, or isolated and restless? I think stimulated, connected, and purposeful, that's part of why we created this channel. That's part of, I think by nature, that's who we are.
Mm-hmm. I do think, though, it's kind of interesting because, yes, we're in the community, we're on this channel, we love everything that we do, we love the people we meet on the street, so we are. I would say, though, from your situation, if it's like, hey, I'm going to get into a condominium, that condominium, it's great because there's a good rental flow, there's a lot of people renting, and I can use that. The challenges with that, you're going to go to the condominium, and it's going to be a bunch of, maybe weekly or monthly renters. You're not going to establish that environment, and you're just going to be sort of high-buy neighbors like up north. And so I would say that you can find, especially smaller condominium complexes, you may get to know your neighbors very, very well. But when you have a house or you're renting a house, you're really part of that community. And so for us, the answer is yes, we're completely stimulated to the level we want to be, which is great.
All right. Do you understand the visa and residency options and what your long-term plan is?
Yes, very much so.
Yes. So we've currently, because, like I said, I'm a citizen, so I come in as a Mexican citizen, and when I go back to the United States, I enter the United States as a U.S. citizen. I'm pretty straightforward there. Stefan is actually able...
I'm weird.
Well, yeah, because we've gone back and forth, literally, because the United States is our primary home. We're not residents of Mexico.
No.
We are, when I have to fill out the form when we leave, I'm, for my Mexican, leaving as a Mexican, I say I'm a resident of the United States. And so I think that's what's going to change is we're going to be, we're going to be sort of flipping that switch. So we're not going to be tourists, and that's more of like you've been.
Yeah, I have been a tourist for many years, and
it's because we come for like 10 days.
If you look at the definitions of folks, I'm a tourist. I come from 2 weeks, and we'll go back and forth, and I look forward to the day that's no longer the case, and the day is coming pretty darn soon, I think. But
right. And we can fast track because you're married to me.
I get to go in the local line. It's great.
Yeah. Well, you'll be able to fast track your residency.
Oh, that's
status,
true. That's true.
And potentially in the future, fast track if you want to become a citizen, you can do that too.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to take a look at those.
And we don't know what that.
Those will be new videos, I am sure, coming along our way. But I did want to say, I got this confused earlier. It's like, since families coming together, she's a Mexican citizen. I actually go with her through the Mexican citizen line, which is wonderful when I'm traveling with Ada. I always like to travel with Ada. All right. So.
All right. And then how will this move affect your family relationships, estate plans, or caregiving roles?
Man, that's a rough one.
Yeah, well, that's something that is huge because, like I said, all of our family that are our immediate close family, aside from our daughter who is now in college on the East Coast, everybody else is in California, Northern California. The good news is they're all pretty, within 3 or 4 hours of each other in Northern California, so they are relatively condensed in that spot. But, at least there are flights. I'm already flying back for work, and when we do, because we have a companion pass, we both usually go together, and that gives me the opportunity. Yeah, it gives me the opportunity to do my work there. It also allows you to visit your dad, and also we've gotten our family together, and even our daughter has flown back with her with her school breaks, And so basically, it's kind of, that's our meeting point is kind of
Is here.
to California.
Oh, California. Well, it's kind of weird.
And here,
yeah.
and here also. So I mean, this is part of the game plan for your dad.
Yeah, don't tell him. Hopefully he's not watching this. So my dad is headstrong, 84-year-old, going to be 85 here soon. Headstrong, independent. He has his own boat. He takes his own boat out on San Francisco Bay by himself as an almost
during small craft advisories.
During small craft advisories. He's like the old man in the sea type of guy. He does not want me to come with him because he wants to make sure he can still do it himself. So what I have to do is he lets me book all his trips, so I'm booking his trips longer and longer and longer down here to Mexico. And he enjoys it down here, but he still likes his independence. And that was tough for me because, being in his middle 80s, leaving him, moving to Houston and then Mexico was really, really difficult. But he didn't want me around anyway because of his independence. We still talk on a day over the phone. It's not like we have a wonderful relationship. But it's him. He wants to have his relationship. So that's when I'm monitoring as we go. And ideally, Mexico is a wonderful place actually to bring your parents down to if they're willing to do that, because the caregiving here. Just quality of life. If their health care is in a way that they can do that, I think is a really great option.
Yeah.
So that was the 20 questions.
All right.
So that's it. So what other questions do you have? What other questions do you have of us? Put those in the YouTube or the Facebook YouTube channel, the Facebook group. I'd love to hear more questions. We're here to answer those for you. A big time in my life. There's so many things that are going to happen. So many trips in Mexico. So many things we're going to do here in Puerto Vallarta. We're so excited to share that with you going forward. So make sure to subscribe and all that sort of stuff too. We're really excited about that. We're excited to meet you when the time is right. So,
all right, you guys. We'll see you next time.
All right, take care, everybody.
Right,
have a good one. Man, what a 360 sunset. This is not the sunset, actually. Sunset's over there. Crazy, huh?